Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Hi, I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Time on Tuesday, October the 31st. Well, trick or treat. No new indictments or plea bargains today in the Trump-Russia investigation, but there's still a lot of news coming out of yesterday's big announcements. The president himself is said to be furious and seething at the White House about developments. They apparently didn't foresee all of these, particularly the campaign aides plea bargain. They're busy spinning the story is really more about Hillary Clinton or somebody else, anything but Donald Trump. Fabulous interview by John Kelley, the White House Chief of Staff, last night. Fabulous is perhaps a bad adjective. He said he will have no apologies for lying about the Florida congresswoman who talked about the experience of a family who'd lost a son in Africa. He said things that were simply untrue about a public speech she gave. He also went on to defend the Confederacy and Robert E. Lee. He said our Civil War occurred because people were unwilling to compromise. Yes, I don't know why we couldn't compromise on the fact that black people were just two-thirds of a human being, but that's John Kelley. He apparently is not the adult in the White House that some people thought after all. Arkansas congressmen, meanwhile, have gone to ground total dead silence on the matter of the Trump-Russia probes. They're doing anything but talking in public about those matters, and I think we can expect that to continue. French Hill did give an interview to a right-wing comedian that seemed to center on Amazon's ability to provide sacks of Lucky Charms marshmallows to people by mail order. Well, 1 year ago today, the New York Times carried a prominent page one headline that said the FBI had found no links between Donald Trump and the Russians in its probe. Well, we know now that that was a pretty bad headline given how things developed. Of course, they were also at the same time writing a great deal about Hillary Clinton's emails. I don't think they're through with that, nor is Donald Trump for sure. Back home in Arkansas, the State Correction Board yesterday decided to spend $3.5 million to make recreation areas in the prisons more secure and keep inmates more separate. They've been a site of a lot of outbreaks of violence in the prisons. They're also going to spend $2.5 million on overtime to bulk up their prison guard staffing. They have dozens of open slots at the prisons. Their pay is low, and that's part of the reason for the problem. The Center for Investigative Reporting has been doing groundbreaking work on slave labor in Arkansas and Oklahoma. At least that's their term. Legally, it's perhaps correct. It's a process in which drug courts divert people from criminal jail sentences into jobs, but they put them in nonprofit agencies that are nominally rehabilitation agencies. They don't do much rehabilitating, but they take the workers' money, and the workers don't get paid for the work they do. A lot of them, hundreds, have gone into poultry industry jobs. The news today is that the center has expanded on the number of people that have been employed by State Senator Jim Hendren's plastics company in northwest Arkansas. As many as 20 at one time, they now report. His workers are not paid either. Now, he says he pays a standard wage, but again, it goes to this outfit, nonprofit, that enjoys a lot of money to pay its employees, but doesn't do much in the way of rehabilitation. Hendren said he's seen good rehabilitation work at this. The workers themselves who've sued his company say the working conditions are harsh and that they can be sent back to prison if they don't work hard enough. There's a question on whether this violates constitutional prohibitions against slave labor in Arkansas and the United States. These cases will go to court. Interesting story in the Washington Post today. There's a statue in Washington, D.C. of Albert Pike, who spent a number of years in the 19th century in Arkansas. He was a lawyer, a writer. He was a Confederate general. He was an avid supporter of secession, and he was a leader in the establishment of Freemasonry. Well, nobody in Washington wants to have a Confederate general statue out in public display in Washington. They'd love to get rid of it, but one problem is nobody else wants it. Who wants a statue of Albert Pike? And that includes, by the way, some members of the Masonic Lodge in Arkansas that's named after Albert Pike. Interesting story. He was a colorful character, not particularly somebody to be proud of, however. Governor Asa Hutchinson is off to Asia this week for a trade mission. It's going to cost $70,000 in tax money to send 8 people there. They'll also use some foundation money to pay for alcoholic beverages and the like. They hope to bring more businesses to Arkansas. The governor says they've had a lot of job announcements in Asia thanks to these trade missions. It's perhaps worth noting that ground hadn't been turned on most of these projects yet, particularly a big pulp mill in Arkadelphia and some textile-related industries in Forest City and Little Rock. but the state's Economic Development Commission says that they're on time and they expect these to be completed in due course. Well, it is Halloween. I'm going to be handing out Take 5 at my house so that I don't eat myself. What are you going to have? Not Jolly Ranchers, I hope. I'm otherwise going to be resisting everything on the political front these days. Hope you do too. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.